Luis Arraez is, above all else, a contact hitter, or if you're in a bad mood, you might even say slap hitter. But that's just what he is, a species of player that's akin to a tuatera, aka a living fossil. Just like the closest relative to his New Zealand reptile lived 240 million years ago, Arraez's baseball comps were much more common in the past. Ty Cobb, Honus Wagner, Pete Rose, Rod Carew, Tony Gwynn, Wade Boggs, and Ichiro all had their best years before the 2010s, when analytic breakthroughs changed the game forever. Thanks to the Hawkeye tracking system, the 12-camera setup found in all MLB and AAA stadiums, we now know an incredible amount about the swings of big league hitters, far more than we ever have. For example, we now know that Giancarlo Stanton swings harder than anyone else in the game, by a pretty decent margin, with an average bat speed of 80.6 miles per hour. On almost 97% of his swings, Stanton exceeds 75, which StatCast defines as a, quote, fast swing. No other player exceeds 80%. Stanton is swinging as hard as he can on every hack he takes. Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna Jr., Yordan Alvarez, these are the titans of the hard swing, and mostly the faces of our modern game. Literally at the other end of that bat speed spectrum is Luis Arraez. Whereas almost every swing Stanton takes is over 75, Arraez has not taken a swing that hard this season once. His percentile in this regard is exactly 0. Not only that, Arraez has the lowest average bat speed in the bigs, at 62.6 miles per hour. Meanwhile, Stanton's swing is 8.4 feet long through the zone, tied for the second longest, whereas the game's shortest swing belongs to Arraez, at just 5.9 feet. If you had to guess, who would you think has the higher batting run value? Which grades performance in situational contexts on a scale of 1 to 100? Yeah, I probably gave it away, but Stanton, with that massive, powerful swing, clocks in at 71, even in a rebound season, whereas Arraez currently sits at 78. One obvious reason is that Luis has put 52 more balls into play than Stanton. Not only that, Arraez has also squared up 153 batted balls this season, compared to just 72 for Stanton. For a quick breakdown of what squared up means, it basically is just getting the best result for a swing of their respective speed. A little over half a decade ago, Stanton signed a 13-year, $325 million deal with the Marlins. Arraez, meanwhile, is making $10.6 million this year, and will probably not attract even a third of the money Stanton did once he hits free agency in the offseason of 2025. We're not here to argue a prime Stanton, who was given that contract, is a worse player than a prime Arraez. He wasn't, objectively. But we are here today to shine a bit of light on a player who excels in skills for another era, who's put up a career batting average of .326 through half a decade of MLB experience, who's won 2 batting titles, and could end up winning a 3rd consecutive one this year. But before we speak too much on his actual style of play, let's dig into his backstory, and what influenced him to mold his game in this now outdated, unique way. Luis Arraez almost never got the chance to play professional baseball. Growing up in San Felipe, in central western Venezuela, Arraez was good enough to play on the under-15 national team, where he went 6 for 15 on a team filled with future professionals. He even pitched 7 scoreless innings against Brazil. A natural righty, Arraez taught himself to hit left-handed to emulate Andy Chavez, who was with the Mets at the time. But on July 2nd, 2013, signing day for international free agents, Arraez didn't get any offers. The best prospect coming out of Venezuela was Gleyber Torres, followed by outfielder Mikey Eddy and Yeltsin Guadino. Arraez had already landed a nickname that captured his approach at the plate, the Sprinkler, for how he sprayed hits to all fields. But Arraez wasn't very big at just 5'10", 175 pounds, and didn't project as a future big league shortstop, where he currently was at the time. So, signing day came and went, and the only team dangling anything for Arraez was the Twins, who invited him to their academy for workouts. 2 months later, they said there was no money for him. Arraez was crushed by the end of his dream. I went home and said, "Mom, sorry, I don't want to play baseball anymore. I want to go to school now and focus as a student." But in November, Twin scout Jose Leon managed to scrounge up $40,000, about the lowest amount tendered, for Arraez to sign with the team. That in itself was highly unusual, because once 16-year-olds get passed over, generally, they stay passed over. Given a second chance, Arraez didn't disappoint. He went to the Dominican Summer League and hit .348, with more walks than strikeouts. Then, in 2015, he went to the Gulf Coast League. In his first AB, he got down 0-2, and then fouled off 12 straight pitches before lacing a single to left. It was as if he was announcing to the baseball world that he'd officially arrived. He hit over 300 at every stop along his rise up the Twins system, except for a .298 season in AA. Still, the Twins weren't sold. In 2015, he wasn't among the invitees to fall instructionals. Instead, a coach who liked Arraez had to basically scream for the team to include him. The Twins were going to send him back to rookie ball in 2016, but after another coach intervention, he won a batting title at low A Cedar Rapids. That managed to get him listed as their number 28 prospect. He then missed basically all of 2017 with a torn ACL, but in 2018, when he split time between high A and AA, he again hit well, notching a .310 average this time. All along the way, he wasn't posting huge power numbers with a small club, but he was demonstrating potentially generational bat-on-ball skills. So, he kept rising through the ranks. He went to big league spring training in 2019 and managed to very much impress manager Rocco Baldelli, who was quoted as saying, "He knows what he's doing with a bat in his hands." But when Arraez was added to the 40-man roster so he could avoid being a Rule 5 pick, many observers were surprised, which might explain why when camp broke, Arraez went back to AA and not AAA. He really didn't seem to be in the team's immediate plans. But when Nelson Cruz was injured, it was Arraez who was summoned to the Twin Cities to take that spot on the roster. His time in the big leagues was set to begin. In 2019, his rookie season, Arraez played in 92 games and somehow collected 109 hits, 77.1% of which were singles. He walked 36 times and struck out just 29. His OPS was .836, which, had he managed to qualify, would have put him in the Jose Abreu, Javier Baez neighborhood, power hitters who lived for extra bases. But he got there far different than those guys did. He forced the Twins to start him, somewhere, anywhere really. He played second, short, third, and left field, with a few games at DH as well. His defense wasn't exactly sharp, his D-WAR was -0.9, but he put up a batting average of .334, the 9th best for an age 22 season in MLB history. His bat-on skills were so excellent that it actually took him 8 games before he struck out for the first time at the highest level. His contribution also apparently went beyond his gaudy batting average. He does things that forces pitchers out of their comfort zone and ultimately doesn't just help in this particular at-bat, but helps going forward, Baldelli explained. "I truly believe that. I think he helps the players that are coming after him in the lineup. Every time he steps up to the plate, that pitcher leaves that at-bat in a bad place." A sprained ankle almost kept Arraez out of the postseason. Nevertheless, he fought his way back and became one of the few Twins to play well against the Yankees in the ALDS, hitting .455 as the Twins were swept. The next 2 years saw Arraez suffer through a litany of injuries. In 2020, he dealt with tendonitis in his left knee and missed 28 games in an already truncated season. Still, he had .321. There would, however, be no postseason heroics this time around. Arraez was held hitless as the Twins were bounced by the Astros in the wildcard series. In 2021, Arraez suffered through a concussion, a shoulder injury, and knee soreness, causing him to miss over 40 games in total. Predictably, Arraez put up the worst numbers of his career, a .294 average, an OPS of .733, and a .105 OPS+, making him just barely better than an average MLB hitter. The Twins lost any confidence in Arraez as an outfielder, so he split time between third and second. His play on this side of the ball was much improved, to the point that his D-WAR rose to +1.2. Overall, his 3.4 WAR put him on track to be a solidly above-average contributor if he can continue to maintain his new defensive excellence. But his team needed pitching, and so some in the organization were thinking Arraez might be good trade bait for arms instead. He remained in Minnesota for at least the next year, and had his best season yet, bouncing back in a big way in 2022, winning his first batting title with a .316 average, fulfilling a prophecy laid forth from opposing manager Terry Francona in 2019, when the veteran manager had said one day that Arraez was virtually guaranteed to win one in the future. Healthy for the entire season, Luis went back to walking more than he struck out, and his run batting value ballooned to the 87th percentile. His OPS+ reached back into the 120s as it had during his rookie season, and his WAR reached north of 4 for the first time in his career. That batting title was the result of hard work that Arraez had put in the offseason, when he asked teammate Nelson Cruz if they could train together in the DR. During the first workout, Arraez apparently threw up because he just wasn't used to that intensity. Cruz saw the difference. He left his family behind, everything, just to get better, and he lost like 20 pounds and got some muscles, and his body started to change. The extra strength would prove pivotal, because hamstring pain limited his mobility down the stretch. And by September 22nd, he trailed Aaron Judge and Xander Bogaerts for the title. But he kept grinding, and eventually got to that aforementioned .316, with Judge finishing second at .311, just missing out on a triple crown in the process. However, the best was still yet to come for Luis. Cruz had heard rumors about Arraez getting traded to the Marlins for Pablo Lopez, so he called his former team and offered his take. Cruz was blunt. Lopez was a great pitcher, but Arraez was special, and the team needed to kill the deal. Too late. The Twins traded a batting champion for the first time since they had traded Rod Carew to the Angels in 1979. The Carew-Arraez comparisons were apt. Both were left-handed contact hitters who mostly played second base, who won batting titles, with Carew taking home 7 in his career and retiring with a .328 average. Again, as a reminder, Arraez's current number is .326. Luis then proceeded to turn back the clock to 1941 to begin his first season with his new club, as this was the last time a batter hit over 400 for a full season, when Teddy Ballgame hit .406. He somehow managed to bag 118 hits in his first 79 games as a Marlin, and as late as June 25th, his average stood at .401. No player had been hitting over 400 in June since Chipper Jones 2008, but since 1941, only 2 players have made it past 100 games with a .400 average, John Olerud and George Brett. Arraez would not join them. In that vein, seemingly everyone knew that Luis would regress to the mean, because his performance was many standard deviations from where he'd always been. But still, the baseball world remained enraptured. Arise indeed slumped to finish at 354, but along the way he became the first Marlin to hit for the cycle. He also became the second modern player to win a batting title in each league, joining fellow second baseman DJ LeMahieu, though LeMahieu's second one had come in that 60-game 2020 season. To properly understand the beauty of Luis Arise, consider this. He doesn't swing hard, yet he doesn't get beat with velo. Even with all the high-octane stuff in the game today, with the average fastball pushing 94 miles per hour, 2023 Arise hit 352 off fastballs and swung and missed at this pitch just 6.6% of the time. Fine, you'd think, he's sitting dead red. He obviously can get beat with off-speed. Nope. Arise hit 351 on off-speed pitches and swung and missed just 4.6% of the time. That's right, he was essentially impervious to either approach. How can a hitter do both? MLB hitters as a whole struck out 22.7% of the time in 2023, yet Arise did so just 5.5%, basically 4 times better than average. How could this man defeat velocity by swinging slower than everybody else? It seems the answer is partially because his swing is just simply shorter. He's quick to the ball, just as his father had taught him when a young Luis would swing at a ball hanging from a mango tree. Perhaps even more staggeringly than anything I've mentioned so far, of his 203 hits, 160 of them were singles, many up the middle to the opposite field. Despite this, he still ended up with an OPS of 861 and an OPS plus of 130, both career highs that made Arise a certified elite player. The same was true of his 4.7 WAR. The Marlins even made the postseason, defying the odds, and this was in large part because they had one of the game's best at the top of the order. It's hard to appreciate until you see him every day, said Marlins former GM Ken Wynn, and that's not anything against him, especially in the right stretch. But nonetheless, when you watch his barrel control, when you watch when he approaches at bats, you can look at the numbers, but you still can't properly appreciate actually watching what he does pitch to pitch. Luis Arise is a brilliant baseball player, but the man who owns the Marlins isn't so magnificent. Bruce Sherman made his money paving over the Everglades, and somehow along the way, he became a certified Florida man. Following a host of questionable rebuilds and retools over the years, Sherman had shown the good sense to hire Kim as GM, the first GM of a major sports franchise in American history, before seeing his team go on to make the postseason in an improbable fashion. Oddly, following the campaign, he decided that Kim herself needed a boss. She retorted by saying, "Take a hike," and left the team entirely. Enter Peter Bendix, one of the major elements of the Rays front office that had spent the last 15 years making the big budget teams look like idiots. Sherman brought Bendix in as president of baseball operations, and unfortunately for him, saw his team stagger to a 9-25 start. Every starter, it seemed, had a torn UCL. Due to years of horrible trade practices pre-Kim, the farm system was fairly weak. Bendix remembered. The Rays traded Delman Young and got back foundational pieces like Matt Garza. They traded David Price and got Willie Adames. They traded and traded, but they stocked up on talent and became consistent threats to win 90-plus games, which usually got the team to the postseason. So when the Padres made Bendix an offer, Arise for right-handed reliever Woo-Suk Go, and 3 prospects, outfielders Dylan Head, Jacob Marcy, and Nathan Martorella, they had to engage. What's perhaps a bit odd about the deal overall is that the Marlins are still paying the bulk of Arise's salary. But regardless, we'll have to see if any of the 4 can become anything of value like Arise has been, with his career WAR of 16.6. Arise, for his part, is raking with the Padres so far. Since joining the team, he's hitting 354, which has raised his overall average to an MLB best 327 after a relatively slow start in Miami to begin the year. This has him currently in line to win his 3rd straight batting crown, which would make him the first player to do so since Miguel Cabrera had his own insane stretch from 2011 to 2013. He's hitting fastballs at arguably his best career level, with a 386 average against the pitch, but against breaking pitches and off-speed, his numbers have dipped to 247 so far, a drop of about 100 points. He's also swinging and missing at those pitches more than he did last year, but nothing discernible seems to have changed with his swing, so if he can get those numbers back up to his former standard, then he could easily hit over 350 again, or even 330. Just like in Miami, Arise also seems to have taken on a leadership role in a clubhouse that is currently in contention for a wildcard berth. Baseball just doesn't value what he does anymore, Los Angeles Angels manager Ron Washington said. And you know why? Because he doesn't hit the ball out of the ballpark. It's just ridiculous. This guy can hit, can outright hit. And hitting is what many MLB players just aren't doing this season. If the league average continues to sit at around 240, it'll be the lowest since 1968, the year of the pitcher, when the league collectively hit 237. And to some degree, Wash is right. What gets attention is power, swings that try to produce launch angle and exit velo that will create those StatCast monsters that many modern fans love. It wasn't that long ago that hitting 220 would get you bounced back to AAA. Now, it's slightly below average, and if you walk and hit homers, teams can live with 220, or even lower. And hey, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. There's room for all types, Kyle Schwarber's included. But keep this in mind, while Schwarber was crushing 47 homers last season with a 197 average, he was doing so with an overall OPS plus of 120. Meanwhile, slap hitting Arise was 10 points better than that at 130. And when you compare other advanced stats like WAR, where Luis dominated 4.9 to 0.6, it becomes clear who the more valuable player was. Yes, a bloop to left is far less exciting than a monster shot to center, but that flare is still more engaging than a walk. Luis Arraez definitely doesn't hit homers. He has just 25 for his career, but his game is exciting to watch because he produces action all the time. He refuses to strike out, having registered more career walks than Ks at 184 to 183 over his first 600 career games. What Luis is showing us more than anything is that baseball players can still take a different path and be incredibly successful while doing it. Choking up, going the other way, shortening the swing, hitting line drives. This isn't to make some kind of grand argument that the game needs more of this approach overall, just that even as we grow in our understanding of optimal production, we shouldn't be too quick to dismiss players who subscribe to other schools of thought, regardless of their origin or methodology, be it new school, old school, or otherwise, as long as they produce results, like how Arraez has over the past half decade, and will likely continue to do for the foreseeable future. Now, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, consider liking and subscribing to the channel and checking out this playlist for other essay videos just like this. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.